Peptides and supplements are all the rage right now. From AG1 to Ozempic, yes, it is in fact a peptide. People are turning to innovative ways to become healthier. Our guest today is here to share insights into groundbreaking, science-backed supplements, including oral peptides, that are designed not only to improve cellular regeneration, but also restore the health of our cells. This is the story of Healthgevity with Michael Antonelli. Michael, so happy to have you on.
It is great to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation. Looking forward to our conversation today.
You know, I saw this. You had 17 years in the supplement industry. You are a veteran by now. You're still a young guy, but you've been around this for a while. You've been in this industry. What are some of the things you've seen and kind of been a part of that most people don't know about this industry? Because I know it very little, a few years I've been in it and been around it, but you're an insider on this. Tell us what are like the secrets and some of the things you've seen in this industry.
I've seen it all, right? I mean, and you see companies jump in this space with purpose, and that slowly could change over time. And it's part of the why we started Healthgevity, because you're with some of these major brands and they start making decisions about the bottom line rather than the patient outcome.
Yeah.
And it frustrates you, right? When you look and learn about these ingredients or you're reading them in research, you're like, where can I find these? And if you're lucky to find some of these ingredients, you're like, well, why are they underdosing them? Or why are these found in proprietary blends? And so I know it might not have been the answer you were looking for, but I think when you've been doing this as long as we both have, you've kind of learned from the best, and you learn what to do, what not to do, and how do you stay true to yourself and your mission. And I think very early on, professionals like you start learning how to sniff out who's in it for the right reason and who are the companies that are forming for a quick exit.
Yeah.
And you could see right through what the mission, vision, purpose is. Healthgevity really stands to be that extension of the healthcare professionals that really truly stand for something greater. We stand and represent for the consumers and end users who are tired of the 5-minute patient visit, that are tired to walk out of that short visit with 3 to 5 prescriptions, and know that there's natural therapies that they ought to be using as a first line of therapy. And so that's our short answer of a question we could talk about probably for the whole time we have here.
Oh, yeah, we could definitely get into it. And it is the reason we connected. I was with my friend, Dr. Ashley Solomon, on the West Coast in LA, and we were discussing like supplements in general, because I'll be frank that, we've used Genestra, Thorne, other brands that are quite reputable or were quite reputable among integrative practitioners and practices. I knew they were bought by Nestle, but I didn't think they were going to make many changes. But they are. They're reducing their line. A lot of the products we had used in the past are being discontinued, pushed into other areas, maybe cost cut. You don't know. There's no explanation of why. But then it starts to be like, okay, what companies are out there that aren't being bought out by pharmaceutical companies that are going to cut costs, lower the quality, lower results for the patients? Of course, we understand when it comes to anything health related, quality determines results. And quality starts with, the raw ingredients, the production process. So, after 17 years or however many before you started Healthgevity, what are the things that you took as, hey, here's how we're going to be different and create a really good brand in this supplement space?
Yeah, I think just having the unique experience of working for some of the largest nutraceutical manufacturers in the United States and probably the world, I learned a lot becoming a sponge. So, for companies like Metagenics, just to name drop one, seeing thought leaders like Dr. Jeffrey Bland, right, the father of functional medicine, Mark Hyman, and incredible people within that world, both professional and provider based, their approach on how they interpret literature, how they get to a formula concept, how do they choose ingredients, how do they dose ingredients, how do they pair them together to put the end user in mind. So very early on, that's really where I got a lot of my, experience from, right? 2006, I was, a Long Island sales representative for Metagenics. And that was the moment, that was the aha moment for me when I saw what natural medicine can be. And it excited me and also frustrated me because I saw the health of people I love. I saw at that point, I was 22 years old. I'd never even had a blood test before. Forget about everything else about vitamins
Right.
and where they were in my life. And so I saw very early on the differences that when you could be on the right supplements, how it put our bodies in the best position to thrive. And from there, I just became that sponge and asking doctors, becoming a patient of incredible people that are making a difference in their local communities. So I saw the art of the ideal patient visit. I saw when you can look at combining the right assessment from blood chemistry to all these specialty labs, to even bioenergenic to applied kinesiology. When you took all of this information to personalize that journey for that particular patient, what could be accomplished? And I haven't looked back since, right? So every step I've taken has been very purposeful to learn from the best and to really create this global collaboration from researchers to frontline providers to influencers. So we collaborate to see, okay, how do we create the best positive change?
Yeah.
And kind of then duplicate that, right? Create this blueprint and touch more lives.
Yeah, it's not always easy to create a supplement. I'm sure you know this. I think a lot of people just believe it's okay. It's a bunch of people in like lab coats, kind of putting things together, testing it. And of course, that is R&D, you could say. But I found that, especially in the supplement world, that isn't very regulated and kind of has a Wild West approach to it in many ways. I've been in this realm where I've talked to formulating companies, and others are just like, you got to make it cheap as can be. It needs to have certain margins on it, and you got to go with products that are being trendy right now, right? And just kind of find those mixtures that sound good, that are going to have some sort of reaction in the body. We don't know exactly amongst everyone what that is, but just jump on the trend, market it, and profit off of it. And they usually get people behind it, right? Whether it's a celebrity or a health influencer or anything like that. I find that not many people are truly understanding the synergies of what they're adding together, which is something I definitely saw in yours. And it is something I was speaking with a guest yesterday about this, that you got to go in it with, it is an art. It is like putting together a meal that you can't just throw, a bunch of whatever is cool and hot in the kitchen, like right now, together on a piece of meat and be like, wow, look at this, it's going to taste good. No, it usually isn't. And so how do you start, let's say, from a 0 point of what's our next product to get to those formulations? Because all of yours are, basically combined ingredient supplements, correct?
Yes. Yeah. And it is an art, right? Just
Yeah.
like if we lined up 7 chefs right now to cook the same thing, there's going to be minor differences, but they're going to have their own spin. So this is something we live and breathe.
Mm,
So first off, when we identify a therapeutic target, whether it's metabolic dysfunction, heart disease, big buckets that we see most people are looking or struggling to help naturally control or support. We then start tapping into the latest research. What is that saying? What are those emerging ingredients, right? We try to take this very disruptive approach. How do we create something that no one's been willing to do, because it's usually really expensive, right? So we take cost completely out of it. We say what's going to be the best therapeutic outcome, and then we work backwards. So from there, we align with people that are very deep into the research, whether they're performing it themselves or reading a ton of literature, and we get that feedback. That's one bucket. The second bucket is aligning with different health practitioners from all different backgrounds, from various points around the country, because people are seeing different things. And we say, well, what are you using right now in your practice that's making the biggest impact,
mhm.
right? Whether it's that patient feedback of what's making them feel better versus blood chemistry. Where are we seeing things move the needle, and then at what dose? And then we put that in a bucket. And then it's usually some sort of synergy where we take a little bit of each and create this unique stack. Part of our special sauce is creating this wide net within the body. So we hit multiple pathways rather than just one ingredient, one target. It's a hit or miss. We may miss, we may hit. We try to do a little bit of incredible ingredients at the right doses, creating this synergistic advantage to help drive the body into a better position. And for the most part, right, we're seeing that trickle down effect where you may have been taking this for X, Y, and Z, but all these other things start evolving. Or when we start honing in on gut dysfunction, other things that weren't intended were also improving. And so it is an art, it's a craft. we may not always get it completely right? So we're always staying nimble and with our manufacturers, with our suppliers to be able to tweak things to get to the desired outcome. And technology is always evolving, especially in the longevity space. But our commitment to our frontline providers that we're going to be that extension to do a lot of the heavy lifting for them. So Healthgevity is naturally becoming this brand that practitioners are turning to when they need to make a big difference. Everything we're doing is capsule based. We're very conscious of pill fatigue and compliance and convenience, because these are really important things for the end user, the one that's listening, on how do we set you up for success day one, 6 months down the line, year two, year five. So, and people's health goals, as you know, are going to change. And so how do we stay relevant? How do we, identify movements or changes in their body today, but then keep that updated and relevant as time goes on?
Yeah, I really love that approach because it is a holistic one. And I remember working with a company from Germany that's been around for over 100 years. And they all said, a true supplement, a remedy for the body should be more than the sum of its parts. You could throw those ingredients in there, but they should all work together to uplift the body in a way that separately they would not. And I think that's what you're accomplishing here. One of the main things that led me to your company and to you were, the idea and the popularity right now, peptides. I was talking with Dr. Solomon. She was discussing how it's difficult in California to get certain peptides. FDA is obviously cracking down on compounding pharmacies about peptides. But, another thing that was very intriguing to me was I know peptides. I've been on CJC. I've been on BPC 157 before. But I've been on the compounded version that you have to inject every day, sometimes twice a day. Super annoying. Not that painful or anything if people are listening, like, oh my God, you got to inject. No, just subcutaneously. It's very simple, but still annoying, doing that over and over. And when Dr. Ashley said, oh, there's this great company that's doing oral peptides, I was like, okay, I've heard of some troches of something, but you're doing combination oral peptides. Like, tell me about that. How did you go? Because most people, as they know, Ozempic and everything else is an injectable. And you're doing an oral peptide that's OTC. So how are you able to achieve that?
Yeah, and I was like you. I was one of those injecting peptides, and for a long time, I was under the impression that it's injectable or nothing. Right, there was no backup plan, and it really set me into this because I felt like if we can identify peptides that are orally bioavailable and can move the needle, combine it to the background I've already had with botanicals and different nutrients, and bring the best of both worlds together, we were going to be able to help so many more people and be able to rely on these when needed, right? So we take something like BPC 157, which was historically one of the few peptides that were orally bioavailable, right? It's in our digestive juice. We're also tapping into a peptide absorption enhancer called SNAC, which is short for saccharose sodium. This was brought to my attention back in early 2016 when there was a product on the market that was taking B12 bound with this SNAC to mimic injectable B12 results before and after blood chemistry. And I was like, this is crazy. No way. Right? I've heard of sublingual B12, IV B12 injection. And there was many companies like mine at the time that had, oral and B12. And this was this biohacking to improve absorption. That's when SNAC was on my radar. And I started looking deeper into literature, saw some other publications about the potential supporting this buffering effect, making peptides that historically were only able to be injected to now have a chance to be impacted orally. And so our first to market was the BPC 157 with low dose SNAC at the right ratio. And now to date, we've added SNAC to things like thymosin beta 4 frag 1 through 4, a bioregulator called thymogen, and even KPV. So we're building on that. But that was just one piece of the puzzle. The other piece was on a global scale, how do we identify incredible research and development groups that are identifying peptides naturally occurring in nature, doing things like self-GRAS or getting the paperwork and documents to get GRAS approved, and then investing in research to get it published on the impact orally their peptides are making. And so we now have the largest variety of oral peptides in the health practitioner space in the United States. And part of that is really unique relationships on a global scale that we're bringing innovation outside of the US in here into health practitioners' hands. So things like DNF10 for satiety, multiple human studies there. We were the first to market with a group in Ireland called Noritas. And this is a group of researchers that have founded the first artificial intelligence software that is cataloging peptides naturally occurring in nature. They've been doing this for almost a decade now, and they've cataloged over 6 million peptides. And then they're able to do a pharma-like model through the AI algorithm. And, I jumped on this very early for age-related muscle loss when it was just in vitro studies. Now there's 2 human studies on this particular peptide matrix naturally occurring in fava beans to show that it's outperforming milk-based peptides 4-to-1 for activating muscle protein synthesis. By this coming summer, we're going to have 6 different peptides or bioactive proteins that are AI discovered within our portfolio. So this is an area we're going to continue to invest in and scale up with some of those other more well-known peptides and really just, in our view, build out this toolbox for practitioners to count on when they need to make a great difference with their patient care.
That's an interesting use of AI, right? I mean, using it for supplements because you're looking at all this research and then you're still using the artfulness within it. People either go one way or the other. They're like, it's either you're a true artist and never use anything like AI ever and just go completely on the art side, or you're all in AI and you don't even have any say and you just let it rule you. But you're using AI to then come up with creative, skilled kind of versions of supplements and formulations.
Yeah, I mean, I think it can't be all in, right? It's more of a guidance. So it's a predictive algorithm that allows you to focus on next steps when you're evaluating so many different ingredient options or peptides that are naturally occurring. So it's not to say it's the end all be all, but in a guiding measure to then say, okay, let's look at this peptide group, right? Or multiple peptides naturally occurring together, and let's invest in the next steps in evaluating the effectiveness or oral potential that these peptides have for that given target.
For someone that's familiar with peptides as far as taking them through an injectable subcutaneous route, how would you compare the effectiveness and results of an oral peptide to that type of route?
Yeah, well, I think the oral route is becoming more and more popular. Even semaglutide is available as an oral option bound by snack, right? So researchers are starting to take notice of the advantage that the right enhancers can make. It's a very hard question to say that an oral is going to respond as good as an injectable, right? Nothing's going to be as good as a direct sub-Q injection or muscle injection. But what we're finding for some particular conditions, the oral could be as good, or in some cases when we're dealing with the gut, could provide a better outcome. So, and I have plenty of doctors that are using protocols that contain injectable and oral to cover both angles. So again, it just comes down to comfort level, availability, right? I think is another big one. And I think once patients start, or the end users or consumers listening are even aware that there are some oral options available, many would be willing to start there, most likely have better compliance and could then get better outcomes because of that.
Could you utilize both? Can you do an injectable BPC while doing the oral BPC?
We have many doctors that are doing that. We don't provide anything injectable. Everything we do is supplement status. So we're the arm that is the oral option. But we have plenty of doctors that are doing protocols, tapping into a variety of different deliveries. So they'll tap into the compounding pharmacy world when that's needed. But I've seen firsthand impact in case studies and testimonials with these combinations being the secret sauce for many patients.
Let's talk about the line, the Healthgevity line that you've created, because it's a comprehensive line, but it's not this kind of listing of hundreds of different products that a lot do. You've been able to keep it quite kind of reduced and manageable. So, we talked about the oral BPC. I'm currently taking that one. Another popular one that I think you could say is up there is the Ignite one, correct? Can you talk about that one, what's in it, and how you created that formula?
Ignite was one of the first big areas that we wanted to focus on. The literature showing 85, maybe even higher, 90% of Americans are metabolically unhealthy and unfit. And we saw that really trigger with people handling COVID differently. And so we took a step back and really wanted to analyze what is the most comprehensive formula we can fit into 3 capsules. So very easy to fit into, people's willingness of what they're wanting to take. But looking at the best way to go under the hood and hit as many pathways as possible that are responsible for the underlying cause of metabolic dysfunction. And so Ignite features now 7 trademarked ingredients, all with human studies behind them at the right doses. And that's what's so key. This isn't a proprietary blend that we're spiking some of the cheap stuff. These are all premium ingredients. I like to start with our satiety peptides, 500 milligrams, over 100 people in this published study where we saw over 8 weeks, not only modulation of ghrelin and leptin, but the average person in the study consuming 600 less calories. So when we think about what is that big patient complaint, they can't achieve their health goals because they can't control their cravings, right? So that was a critical piece. Well, then from there, we look at things like berberine, but the next generation berberine, which is dihydroberberine. Big complaint with berberine is in order to get the dose that's really being shown in the literature, many people have some GI issues. Well, berberine in the gut transforms into dihydroberberine. And what we're seeing is that it's 5 times more better absorbed, double the half-life, and no GI issues. So that's the next piece in here. Another ingredient that I love to talk about is L-beta. And if you're listening and you haven't heard about this yet, L-beta is a metabolite of L-valine. We only produce it during high-intense workouts. And so it's coined as an exercise mimetic. So when we think about beiging white fat, right, activating that tricky fat in the body, this is one of those ingredients that's doing it. Then from there, we look at activating AMPK levels, increasing thermogenesis without stimulation. So you're seeing a very unique form of bitter melon at a significant dose. Actoponin and Inuslim or other botanicals that have some really impressive data on it, and grains of paradise, which is going to help the body burn 100 calories a day at 40 milligrams, which is what we have, with no stimulation. And then also enhancing that beiging of the white fat. So this is that wide net we're talking about. You could take all 3 at once if you want to feel that, or some that are taking it as a goal of just modulating blood sugar or wearing a glucose monitor. You could spread the capsules out throughout the day to keep that body balanced. And so this is a great way to activate or start your wellness experience if you don't have any background of taking supplements, because what this is doing is when you balance blood sugar, your energy's increased, brain fog is going to be lifted, and your body's in motion to make other significant changes.
Well, speaking of brain fog, you have another great one that you had sent me. It's the Brain Boost one, right? So, let's go from weight loss, which obviously it's one of those kind of vanity type of measures everyone wants, which is great with Ignite, to what I consider probably the most important organ for what we do every day, which is focus on work and all these multitask. Your brain needs to be optimized. So talk about Brain Boost and what you placed in there as a formula.
So this was one that for doctors, they're dealing with this every day.
Yeah.
Fatigue, we're going to hit on brain fog again, crashing in the afternoon. And so many people are turning to drinking coffee all day, energy drinks, energy shots. And what we're finding, and this was a big area, a big ask by a lot of our providers was, give me something that's going to make a difference, but avoid caffeine. Mm-hmm. Because genetic tests are showing that many are not doing well with caffeine. Many people don't metabolize caffeine, whether it's slow metabolizers, fast metabolizers, because there's many people that they could drink coffee all day and go right to bed when they want. So they're not getting any of the benefit. And there's those people, my wife included, they drink coffee after 10 o'clock every day. If they do, they're up all night. And so we worked with some of the latest research, an incredible group that found a way to look at the metabolites of caffeine. And an ingredient called paraxanthine is one of those 3 metabolites. So caffeine converts 80% of it into paraxanthine, and it's responsible for all the benefits associated with caffeine. But that other 20% it converts into is what can lead to some of the issues, jitters, heart issues, crashing, all these issues that people could experience with caffeine. And so the data, and some of it's not even published yet, that we had early access to, is that by delivering the body-ready form of paraxanthine, you're getting this jolt in focus and drive and energy, both in the brain and the full body, without any of those other issues associated with caffeine. That was the big aha moment. So we can come out so that had a caffeine-free claim, mimic some of those things that are desirable about caffeine, and then build around it. And so other things like N-acetyl L-tyrosine, alpha GPC, low dose L-theanine, and things like lion's mane, functional mushrooms, creates this net in the brain and the body that you could take this whenever you need that edge, or the more you take it, the better it is, to put your body in a better position to be at its best. And it has a short half-life. So many are taking one capsule in the morning, that second capsule midday, and just feeling more productive, more awake, more aware. And then that sets our bodies into a better position to create more of that positive change. And so you hit right on it. Starting with Ignite for that metabolic issue, Brain Boost is what we call this formula to put our brains, our minds, in a better position to thrive at its best. And so, yeah, great 1-2 punch as a nice starting point for what Healthgevity stands for.
And there's even a third punch to this, the hook jab sort of, and it would be the second brain, your gut, with Prime Gut Health that you're doing, because so many people have gut issues, and it is the starting point of everything. People say, look at the microbiome, look at the gut, and you'll understand why so many people are sick. It is where you host so much of the immune system, so many hormonal things, also just an incredible place to start if you want to be healthy overall. What was it that you looked at and placed into your formula for the gut that makes it different than, let's say, a probiotic or a prebiotic?
So this was a really important area for us. You're hitting on all the major buckets here, but leaky gut dysfunction, it's hard to repair a house while it's still on fire, right? So to look at things that are making a big difference in our doctors' dispensaries, a couple of them that come up consistently, serum bovine immunoglobulins. That was one that every practice I went into had this in there. And so looking at, okay, what's that right dose for long-term and acute? We settled on 1 gram. And then looking at more emerging things like butyrate or tributrin, and we have the only patented tributrin that has been shown to reach the colon. So improving short-chain fatty acids, complementing the immunoglobulins that will bind to pathogens that you don't want there and start that elimination process. Then tapping into ID-verified probiotics in the form of spores that withstand different pH levels, different environments, and at the right dose. And the Tribac combination, or 3 different ID strains that together showed a really nice impact in acute situations with patients that were published. And the last piece is estrogen, right? Astragalus. This is not only reducing intestinal wall inflammation, it improves bioavailability, it improves the environment of the gut and the flora, and creating really these 4 ingredient combinations together replace 3 to 4 different products in our doctor's offices. So again, hitting on compliance and convenience and this synergistic advantage. This is a formula that many doctors have told me this has changed the way they practice. This has changed their protocols, because by helping mend the gut, it made everything else that they were doing that much more absorbed, utilized, and impacted. And so Prime Gut Health, to me, is not only incredible early on in your journey, but then taking that 1 capsule long-term to address the role of the microbiome as a key target for longevity was another secondary goal of that formula.
Yeah, what I've noticed also with practitioners, our own and ones I speak with, you got to do 2 things before you could start really, getting treatments to have their full effectiveness. Number 1 is, of course, improve the gut health, clean it up, make sure it's optimized. And number 2 is remove toxins, right? Detoxify the body and get rid of those things that are always going to hamper it. And that alone is going to put you in such a better position for anything you do afterwards. One of the supplements that stuck out for me, I've been hearing a lot of buzz, I've never tried it myself, as a peptide, is the TB4 that you have. Can you talk about what TB4 is and how you were able to get that into an oral and a effective supplement?
Absolutely. So again, looking at different peptides, we look at small chain amino acids. In this case, the fragment that we have used here is a 4 amino acid chain. That's the 1 through 4 fragment in the thymosin beta 4, which is one of the more popular peptides. So the 1 through 4 frag is bioavailable. It's easy to break down and utilize. This formula also contains the stack we talked about earlier, right? The saccharosate sodium, and then the thymogen, which is a bioregulator dipeptide or 2 amino acids. Again, very easy to break down and utilize. We looked at dosing this correctly, so 500 micrograms of each and per capsule. It's in a delayed release or acid resistant capsule to further enhance the absorption potential. And really, that's where it ended there. We were looking at, from our providers or healthcare providers, what was making a big difference in their practice. These were 2 different formulas that they were using. They were like, hey, if you could streamline these both together, you can improve the dose and make these more affordable. Because what we're seeing is this immune resilience being a prime focus for a lot of the doctors that consider themselves functional, integrative, or regenerative. And so how do we fix a broken immune system? It's not that easy, right? It's, where do peptides fit in? Where's lifestyle changes, clean up the gut, and then introduce more of those nutrients that are healing, that help the body put it in a position to actually respond to when something's coming in and invading it, right? Or insulting it. And so these 2 peptides, again, were orally bioavailable, showed an advantage of pairing them together. And a lot of that was already done with individual work that they were doing with the other formulas within their practice. So we just looked at a way to make it better, make it more affordable to get in more people's hands, and improve on the bioavailability component.
Yeah, which is always big. You got to find it to be bioavailable for it to truly work and start with the high quality ingredients there. A lot of what we are talking about here with peptides, with these innovative, advanced supplements, people feel they're either for biohackers or bodybuilders or like kind of wellness geeks out there that are really, trying to optimize their health. But, a lot of what you've done in the world I live in is chronically ill people. Again, that's the majority. 60+% are living with a chronic illness. And that's only going up. How do you see these, or let me say this, are there any cases that stick out to you from your practitioner that you've heard on chronically ill patients who are taking these supplements and oral peptides that saw great improvement?
Wow, where do I begin?
Mm,
I think you hit on the backbone of the why of Healthgevity, right? Our idea, and this is, if you're listening, if you haven't read David Sinclair's book yet, or Tony Robbins' Life Force, or even Dr. Mark Hyman's latest book, these are incredible people that are talking about or raising awareness on aging being one of the biggest influencers of chronic disease.
yeah,
And so how do we harness the hallmarks of aging? How do we reset the speed of how we're aging? And it starts with our health of our cells. And so, we look at things like cellular senescence and telomere and autophagy and geroprotection, all these big words. A couple of things that really hit on is immunosenescence, cellular senescence. We've had some providers looking at these things like senolytics, right? Cellular senescence, our product's called Rejuvenate, but doing this 2 days on, 2 days off, non-responders to biologics and steroids and autoimmune cases, this was a big difference, right? It's resetting our immune system, for lack of better analogy, right? So I think a lot of it's unknown of why these unique stacks are impacting the level they are. But I think what we're seeing is an advanced healthcare practitioner adding in these on top of what they already were doing. It's upgrading the outcome. It's speeding along the results. Or once they've gotten somebody healthy in a better place, well, how do you maintain that long term? I mean, it's a constant struggle, right? We're always looking at how do we just better equip somebody to stay where they're at when they've achieved the health that they've wanted or been seeking for so long. And so it's never like let's move something, happy it goes, and then get back to what you were doing, right? That's why a lot of diets fail.
yeah,
People are happy where they're at, and then they go back to those old habits. So it's again looking at equipping ourselves short-term, long-term with nutrients, peptides, and other activities long-term to keep us where we're at.
Where do you see the future of this going? Like, what are you excited about next? I'm sure you're producing new products as we speak. I'm sure I saw you kind of launched a new one recently that you're excited. But where do you see this kind of extending to? And are you a little bit concerned that they may want to regulate this more and more as they've done with compounding pharmacies?
Yeah, listen, I hope they do. I hope there are guidelines that are clear that can be followed, um, because we're all for that. Because there's some people that are out there marketing certain things that, not really backing it up. So
Yeah.
we're always for better policies for quality control. That will definitely help clean up some of the bad actors in this space that give us a bad reputation.
Hmm.
But where I see things going, there's so much tremendous technology right now outside of the United States that we're trying to bring in. Incredible technology, incredible ingredients. Where do we see AI fit into this long term? Where do we see these biological versus chronological age clocks or new specialty tests, right? Our doctors are being inundated on all these different ways to assess. When is it too much, right? How do you interpret all these, the role of genetics, the role of your CBC, CMP, and glucose, and the lipoproteins or CRP? We can talk about all these biomarkers, but at the end of the day, it is incredible where we see the natural products industry going and its role long term into health. And I'm excited to be part of it. I'm excited to have to be back in the future sharing some new updates and with your listeners for sure.
Yeah, awesome. And what's your favorite product? I got to put you on the spot here. You got to have a favorite in your own line, right? What's the one you're most excited to use every day?
It's hard to say one. We've got a small portfolio as you spoke about. Every one of our formulas has a very unique why and story behind it. So I would say it's never just one, but if I had to be put on the spot and say one right now, I'm leading heavily on the brain boost. We
Mm,
have some major decisions happening over the next, that's impacting the now and the next 3 to 5 years of Healthgevity. So to have some extra firepower in the brain to make sure we're making the right decisions, juggling a lot of incredible opportunities that we're grateful for. If I just had to pick one, it's that one at this point today.
I am with you on that. I've often said this, that time is not our most valuable resource. That's a resource we all share the same amount of. It's our ability to focus and the vitality we have. If we have 24 hours and we can't really focus with it and we don't have the vitality to enact what we want to do and be productive and see through amazing things, what does it matter? Your 24 hours won't be used. It's how efficient you could be. And that really comes down to that organ in your head, the most complex object in the known universe is the brain, and how do we optimize that? So I'm with you on that. Outside of supplements, which you're obviously an expert on, what are some of the health things that you're doing? What would be your tip for people out there trying to optimize your health outside of taking the Healthgevity supplements?
Wow. So where do I start there? I mean, I think what's really important is movement, and movement can
Mm,
mean different things for different people. So weight bearing exercise, going out for walks, paired with eating right. What we bring to market is what they are, supplements. They're not the magic pill that
mhm.
somebody might be looking for. I don't want to disappoint you. But if you're not doing all these important things behind the scenes every day, right? Eating as clean as possible. And sometimes that means not going out. It means, cooking and sourcing as much as possible so you can control that. And it's moving right. It's breathing right. Those are what I think drives my health day in and day out. And then secondarily would be, identifying the right peptides and nutrients as needed to support the secondary goals I have.
No, they say sitting is the new, or yeah, sitting is the new smoking. And it is true. We don't move nearly enough. We don't get outside nearly enough. So I think that's incredibly important. And it doesn't matter how many supplements you take or peptides or anything. If you're not going to move, if you're not going to do other healthy actions around it, it won't have that impact that you're really looking for your health. So, Michael, I mean, we could go on and on, for forever. But as I told you, people have a very short attention span. They need some more brain boost in their lives and everything, so they can listen to 3 hours of us doing this at another time. But Thank you so much for coming on. I'm really glad we got to connect and talk about, and I'd love for you to come back and talk about all the new things you're doing sometime soon.
Thank you so much for having me, and looking forward to part 2.
Absolutely. We'll have you on soon. And until then, go check out healthgev.com for all the Healthgevity line. And until next time, continue writing your own healing story.